Good morning. What you see under the camera is just a regular sheet of 60-pound paper. It can be concept paper if you want. I've drawn a horizontal line going left to right, about 3 inches off the bottom. That's going to be my eye level line, or you can call it your horizon line, whatever you want to do. Now, in this case, I've got a vanishing point on the right and a vanishing point on the left. Be sure to establish those. And remember, when you are drawing straight lines, to spread your fingers wide, pressing down on the ruler, so when you rule your line like this, there's less of a likelihood of the ruler slipping. You can turn your paper any way you want to. Just be sure and use the very same 2 vanishing points all the time. I have a couple of lines coming from the left, a couple coming from the right. These look like searchlights projected up into the night sky, and where they intersect is kind of a parallelogram, maybe, not exactly, but kind of. And watch, coming off of that, I can create a 3-dimensional solid. I'm going to reinforce or darken some of my lines. I could be using my ruler for this, but I feel pretty confident with my skills so that my lines free-handed are looking pretty good. That is a 3-dimensional solid. Now, it's a pretty basic one, and you can stay basic for a while. Just like I projected lines up and off the page, I could, let me add another couple of lines here coming from the left vanishing point. I could also come down here downwards. Now this is looking a little more odd because of how it's drawn. It's above the eye level line, at least this section is. You wouldn't normally think to see the very top. Since it's above your eye, why would you be looking down? But maybe this is curving up and around and facing you, I don't know. Nonetheless, you see 3 surfaces. Now just imagine if you were to shade these light, medium, and dark, light, medium, and dark, they'd begin to look like 3-dimensional solids existing in a 3-dimensional space. That's kind of the idea behind this assignment. It is to create an otherworldly environment where these objects, some of them simple and some of them not so simple, kind of create a form, an otherworldly environment for you to exist on. Now, since this is the horizon line, I can just project downward also. I don't have to continue to project upwards. And here I have 2 lines coming from my left vanishing point, 2 coming from my right. You notice I draw lightly. See how this rectangular shape or this parallelogram kind of exists behind that one. So that means I'm going to go ahead and do some overlapping. I wouldn't see this line. I would see that one. I would see this one. Okay, let me go ahead and erase that line right there. Let me drop in a little bit of hatching lines. Hatching work there so you can understand that is somewhat slightly shaded right down there. Don't have to do very much because this is a concept drawing. You don't have to ever do much shading on a concept drawing. You can see light, medium, and dark represented by the hatching and cross-hatching down here. You can do the very same thing here. Now let's take a look at some other designs or other drawings that I've already done where the objects become a lot more complex. Here's my same 3-inch line off the bottom, my same horizontal going left to right, my same 2 vanishing points, and my same lines coming out from right and left vanishing points, giving me an opportunity to create some of these 3-dimensional forms. Here it is again. All right, some of the forms more basic than others. And sometimes, you know what, I don't even use those lines coming from my left or right vanishing points. And that might be our best bet, is to not mess around too much with those lines coming from my vanishing points. Here's what I mean by that. Okay, you can use lines coming from your vanishing point or not. If you decide to go around like this and kind of use lines that direct themselves to your vanishing points without actually drawing the lines, that's fine too. So I'm going to go ahead and do this line and this line and this line going up. I didn't really use my ruler. I didn't really use my vanishing points other than to kind of aim towards them. So the angle down here does look convincing as far as 2-point perspective. It does look like I'm trying to manage my lines going up to the vanishing points left and right. Here's some hatching, here's some cross hatching, just to kind of give a sense of light and shadow on that particular shape. I guess if I have a notch there, I might have a corresponding notch right there and some corresponding lines right there. Wouldn't have to, but I could. Whatever I do on one side, I do on the other. It looks like something took a chunk out of that form right there. Let's go ahead with this form. This form does not rely on vanishing points at all. It's just a plain old circle. That plain old circle can be a plain old or less than plain old sphere if I decided to shade it. Notice how I'm using curving contour lines right now to cross the surface, to kind of wrap around the surface and give you more of the sense of its rounded form being rounded, it's got lots of curves going in every direction. And you notice my contour lines likewise kind of go in every direction. Not a lot going on there in terms of contour, or I'm sorry, in terms of shading, light and dark, hatching, cross-hatching contour, but just enough to give that kind of a 3D look. Let's see what else I can do with what I've got here. How about if I knock a hole in that? Now that's just an oval. That's a basic mark that we practice all the time. Seen at a very unusual angle, I can go ahead and carve out an extra little section right there. That from Cloud City, you remember doing that maybe a long time ago as a 6th grader, could show you a hollow hole in the side of that. Let me put a corresponding oval on the other side. Notice how I go to the outside edge, in this case the left edge, in this case the right, to create that additional surface which represents the wall inside the form. And of course, if I want to have something shooting through the form, I can. That's one of those little balls with wings that you see in Harry Potter films, whatever that thing is called. What if I do this? What if I make a line there, 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 and here? You notice how these 4 lines are kind of parallel to the shape that they're in, come straight down as if this is a hollowed out section, a hole carved or created inside of that form right there. What if I go ahead and do a little bit here? Let's do this. See these 2 lines that I had on the paper from my vanishing points? It's a very obtuse angle right there. Obtuse means much greater than 90 degrees. What if I take those 2, kind of like what I did over here, those 2, and I'm going to bring those up and out. And what if one creates a side for me there, and this one has a different shape to it there? So again, a form only because I can see more than 2 sides to it, not a flat shape. I can measure this in 3 dimensions now, and a lot of this is just free-handed work. I kind of started with something that's in 2-point perspective. That would be the base, but when I ended up here, I ended up with something that was more freehand, free form. Let's see what else I can do. Let's knock a hole in this little guy, and again, kind of take these edges and go with them that angle there, this line there. And because I have a left vanishing point down here, how about aiming down towards that? And this little ledge that we see from underneath kind of creates you more of a 3D section out of there. Let's take this block right here and float it here. I'm going to take that length of line there. Now, in this case, my angles are not really obeying a vanishing point, at least not a vanishing point that I've used here on the paper. I'm just going to go ahead and kind of create new vanishing points, pretend like they exist somewhere off in the distance. You can see, pretend like there's a vanishing point for that line on the left, there's a vanishing point for those 2 lines on the right. Here I have a 3-dimensional solid. It looks like it got knocked out of there. And again, a little hatching and cross-hatching going on for you here will help you to better understand the lights, mediums, and darks on that surface. You don't have to do a lot because this is a concept drawing. Now, what I have on this paper are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 objects drawn in 3D. So let's have you try to do at least 7, maybe more. These are not difficult to draw. Watch, here comes number 8. What if I do an arrow, another arrow there, connect those, repeat that line there, repeat that line there. Look, I didn't even use vanishing points on that one, just lines and arrows, and it looks like I have yet an 8th form, very small right there. It's kind of nice to have big and smaller. Let's make a smaller one here, only because that gives you a greater sense of depth going back into the distance. So remembering that variation of size, overlapping of your forms. I don't think I did much overlapping. You can do more than I did. Overlapping of your forms, placement on the page, low or high, all are indicators of a deeper space or a nearer space, depending on what you're how you're trying to control or create that space. Okay, so I know that's kind of difficult. Again, what you might want to try to start with is a line 3 inches off the base just to get you going. You don't have to use this line, this horizontal line, this eye level line forever, but go ahead and start with it anyhow. Maybe shoot off a vanishing point over here on your right and over here on your left. Maybe shoot some lines going up from the left to the right and from the right to the left. Perhaps use some of these intersecting shapes to create You notice that line uses a vanishing point, that one does, that one does. This one does not. This one is just a vertical. To create some three-dimensional forms and have some fun with these intersecting lines coming off your vanishing point can be very, very useful, 2 or 3 at a time. But you know what? When push comes to shove, you don't really have to use these lines at all. You could just simply create, kind of like we did as 6th graders, create in thin air using arrow configurations here. Forms, add a little hatching or cross hatching if you need to on your concept to create more of a three-dimensional look. So give this a try. Let's see what you can come up with. It will be a realistic space, but not a realistic environment, kind of an otherworldly environment, the kind of thing you might find on another world. Now, you try.